Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed? Sometimes silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. In a world filled with noise, constant opinions, and endless chatter, silence has become a rare jewel. And when a woman embraces silence, not as weakness, but as strength, it becomes her greatest power. Think about it. The calm before the storm, the stillness before a sunrise, the pause before a powerful answer. Silence is never empty. Silence is full of wisdom, clarity, and energy. A woman's silence is not her submission. It is her space to listen, observe, reflect, and respond. It is her shield against unnecessary battles, her comfort in moments of pain, and her weapon when words would only add fuel to fire. We have been taught to equate strength with noise, with proving a point, with showing power. But true strength often lies in restraint. True confidence lies in not having to react to every word thrown at you. Silence allows you to rise above the drama instead of drowning in it. When silence is practiced with awareness, it transforms into dignity. When silence is carried with grace, it becomes influence. When silence is chosen with wisdom, it is not emptiness. It is eloquence without sound. So let us never underestimate the power of silence. It is not the absence of voice, it is the presence of mastery. A woman who knows when to be silent also knows when to speak. And when she does, the world listens. Have you ever seen how people often misunderstand silence? Many times, when a woman chooses to stay quiet in a situation, people immediately assume she has no answer, no power, or no confidence. They equate her silence with defeat. But the truth is, silence is not weakness. It is one of the greatest forms of strength. When you are silent, you are not powerless. You are powerful enough to control yourself. Think about it. Anyone can shout back. Anyone can argue. Anyone can react instantly. That doesn't take strength. That's the easy way. But it takes real courage to stay calm when provoked, to hold back words when they could hurt, and to respond with grace rather than impulse. Silence is not about having nothing to say. It's about knowing when it is wise not to say it. There's a beautiful example from nature. Have you noticed how oceans roar when storms hit them? Waves crash, winds howl, the noise is endless. But go deep inside the ocean, and it is completely silent, completely still. That depth is where the true power of the ocean lies, not on the noisy surface. In the same way, a woman's depth is found not in how loud she can speak, but in how strong she can remain in silence. Sometimes silence is a shield. It protects us from battles not worth fighting. When people criticize you, mock you, or try to pull you down, if you react, you give them your energy. But if you remain silent, you rise above their level. Silence in that moment is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity. It says, I value my peace more than your opinion. And that is strength. At other times, silence is a teacher. In silence, you begin to hear the voice of your own heart. In silence, you give yourself the chance to reflect before responding. And reflection always leads to better choices. If words are arrows, Silence is the bow that gives direction and control. Without silence, words can be reckless. With silence, words become meaningful. Now let me remind you, silence doesn't mean suppression. It doesn't mean you should never speak up. It means you don't waste your words where they are not valued. It means you save your energy for the moments that truly matter. When a woman speaks after being silent, her voice carries a power that shakes hearts, because it is not just noise, it is wisdom, it is truth, it is purpose. Many great leaders, saints, and thinkers practiced silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they knew strength is not proven by constant talking. It is proven by self-mastery, and self-mastery shines brightest in silence. So never let anyone tell you that your silence makes you weak. Remember, silence is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. It is the strength of patience, the strength of restraint, the strength of inner confidence. And when you choose silence wisely, you are not losing a battle, you are winning yourself. There's something fascinating about silence. It has the ability to reveal truths that words often hide. In moments of silence, wisdom speaks. When a woman chooses silence, it is not that she doesn't know what to say. It is that she chooses to listen, to observe, and to understand before she speaks. And in that process, her silence becomes her wisdom. Have you ever noticed how a child learns? In the early years, the child doesn't speak much. The child observes, listens carefully, and absorbs everything happening around. That silence becomes the foundation of the child's knowledge. In the same way, silence allows us to absorb the world around us with greater depth. When we talk too much, we often miss what others are trying to say. But when we are silent, we listen, not just with our ears, but with our hearts, and that listening opens doors to wisdom. Many people think being wise means knowing how to answer every question, how to argue back with intelligence, or how to win debates. But real wisdom often lies in not rushing to answer at all. It lies in holding back and taking time to reflect. Silence gives us that pause. It helps us process what is happening, understand the intentions behind people's words, and respond in a way that uplifts rather than destroys. Wisdom is not only about knowledge, it is about perspective. Silence gives you that perspective. Imagine a woman in a heated discussion. She could raise her voice, defend herself instantly, and throw back arguments. But if she stays silent, she sees more. She sees the emotions of the other person. She reads between the lines. She notices what is not being said. Her silence allows her to catch details that noise would have hidden. And in those details lies wisdom. Silence also helps in decision making. When we are surrounded by endless advice, opinions, and distractions, our mind becomes cluttered. We can't hear our own thoughts. But when we sit in silence, suddenly clarity emerges. The right direction becomes visible. Many people make wrong decisions simply because they didn't pause long enough to think in silence. A wise woman knows this. She doesn't rush. She allows silence to guide her. Another beautiful gift of silence is that it teaches us patience. In silence, we learn that not every question deserves an immediate answer. Not every problem needs an instant solution, and not every insult requires a reaction. Patience is a form of wisdom, and silence nurtures it. A woman who practices silence develops the ability to wait, to endure, and to respond only when the time is right. Silence also deepens relationships. Sometimes the most powerful conversations happen without words. Sitting quietly with someone, simply being present, can say more than hours of talking. Wisdom lies in knowing that silence can connect hearts in a way words never could. And finally, silence teaches us to listen not only to people, but also to life itself. The rustle of the wind, the rhythm of our breath, the whisper of our conscience, all these voices are heard only in silence. Wisdom is not always found in books or speeches. It is often found in the quiet spaces of our soul. So remember, silence is not emptiness. It is full of wisdom. And when a woman carries silence within her, she carries an ocean of understanding, patience, and clarity. That is her true strength. Have you ever noticed how most conflicts in life are not born out of real issues, but out of words that were said in anger, pride, or haste? One word leads to another, a small spark turns into a fire, and what could have been avoided becomes a storm. In such moments, silence is not just a choice, it is wisdom. Silence has the power to stop unnecessary battles before they even begin. Think about it. Someone criticizes you unfairly. Your instinct may push you to answer back, to defend yourself, or to prove them wrong. But if you respond with anger, the argument grows. They throw another word. You return another, and before long, both sides are hurt and peace is lost. But if, instead, you choose silence, the fire dies out. Silence takes away the fuel that keeps conflict burning. The more you feed an argument with words, the bigger it grows. The moment you take away that fuel, it collapses. That is the strength of silence. There's a simple truth. Not every statement deserves your response. Not every provocation needs your energy. Sometimes, walking away silently is the most powerful answer you can give. It shows that your dignity is worth more than a pointless fight. It shows that your inner peace cannot be disturbed by someone else's negativity. Imagine a situation in a family setting. A heated argument breaks out at the dinner table. Everyone is trying to prove themselves right. Voices rise, tempers flare. In the middle of this storm, one woman chooses silence. She listens, she observes, and she does not allow herself to get pulled into the drama. Her silence is not cowardice. It is strength, because while others are losing control, she is preserving her peace. Later, when the heat has cooled down, her voice will be the one that carries weight, because it will be calm, balanced, and wise. Conflict thrives on reaction. It waits for someone to answer back so it can grow bigger. But silence starves it. Silence disarms the person who is trying to provoke you. When someone insults you and you do not respond, they are left powerless. They expected a fight. but your silence gave them nothing to hold on to. That is how silence prevents unnecessary conflicts. It denies negativity the response it craves. There's also another layer to this. Sometimes silence is not about ignoring others. It is about protecting relationships. In every bond, whether it's with family, friends, or colleagues, there will be disagreements. If every disagreement turns into a war of words, relationships will shatter. But silence helps us choose peace over pride. It helps us pause and ask, is this argument worth losing someone I love? Is this battle worth my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. Silence then becomes an act of love. But let's be clear. Silence does not mean suppressing yourself. It doesn't mean accepting injustice or staying quiet when truth must be spoken. It simply means knowing the difference between necessary battles and unnecessary ones. Wisdom is in choosing silence when the conflict is petty, when words will only add more fire, when the outcome is not worth the chaos. So whenever you are tempted to argue, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, will this conflict matter tomorrow or even an hour from now? If the answer is no, let silence be your response. By not speaking, you may not win the argument, but you will win something greater. You will win your peace. There is a kind of medicine that doesn't come in bottles, that doesn't need prescriptions, and yet it has the power to heal wounds deeper than the body. That medicine is silence. When the world feels heavy, when the heart feels broken, when words only make things worse, silence steps in as a gentle healer. Think of moments of grief. When someone loses a loved one, there are often no words that can truly comfort them. Sometimes the most powerful support is not in what you say, but in what you don't say. Sitting beside them in silence, holding their hand, being present without speaking, that silence heals more than 1,000 speeches. Words may fade, but silence never does. Healing requires space, and silence creates that space. When a woman chooses silence in her own pain, she gives herself room to breathe, to feel, to process. Too many voices and too many opinions can confuse the heart, but silence allows wounds to close gently. It whispers, take your time, you don't need to rush. In silence, emotions are not suppressed, they are slowly soothed. Silence also heals anger. How many times have we spoken words in anger and later regretted them? Words spoken heat often cut deeper than we realize. But when we remain silent in anger, we give ourselves a chance to cool down. That silence becomes a healer, preventing wounds from being created in the first place. It stops us from saying what cannot be taken back. In this way, silence not only heals us, but protects others from unnecessary pain. Think of nature. Have you ever walked in a quiet forest, by a still lake, or sat under a sky full of stars? That silence is not empty, it is full of peace. Nature heals through silence. It calms our restless minds, lowers our burdens, and makes us whole again. A woman who allows herself moments of silence finds that same healing within. Her silence is not loneliness. It is a sanctuary where she reconnects with her own strength. Silence also heals relationships. Sometimes two people may hurt each other with words. If both keep talking, the wound only deepens. But if one chooses silence, it gives time for emotions to soften and for love to return. That silence is not weakness. It is medicine for the bond. Later, when words are spoken again, they are gentler, kinder, and more meaningful. Another way silence heals is by reconnecting us with our inner self. The world is loud, phones ringing, notifications buzzing, people talking constantly. In all this noise, we often lose touch with our own heart. Silence brings us back. It allows us to listen to the quiet voice inside, the one that knows what we truly need. And when we listen to that voice, we find healing from confusion, stress, and self-doubt. Silence, then, is not an absence, it is a presence of calm, of peace, of love, of strength. When embraced, it becomes the soft touch that closes wounds, the gentle hand that lifts the heart, and the invisible medicine that restores balance. Dignity is not measured by how loudly we speak, how forcefully we argue, or how quickly we respond. True dignity is measured by the calmness of our presence, the grace of our behavior, and the strength of our restraint. Silence, when chosen wisely, is one of the finest ways to build and protect dignity. In moments of conflict, it is easy to lose control. Voices rise, tempers flare, words are thrown carelessly. And in the heat of it all, dignity often slips away. But a woman who practices silence holds on to her dignity like a crown. She does not allow herself to be dragged into unnecessary quarrels. Her silence says more than words ever could. I respect myself too much to lower my standards. That kind of silence is strength wrapped in elegance. Think about leaders, thinkers, or even wise elders in a family. The ones who are most respected are often those who speak less but carry authority when they do. Why is that? Because silence builds an aura, it makes people curious, it shows self-control. And dignity is born when people see that you are not easily shaken, not easily provoked, not easily dragged into the mud of arguments. Dignity is also about knowing that not everything deserves your attention. When someone tries to belittle you, insult you, or provoke you, responding instantly may feel satisfying in the moment, but it often brings you down to their level. Silence, on the other hand, keeps you above the situation. It keeps your dignity intact. It says, I will not waste my words on what does not matter. And that choice makes people admire you even more. There is also a subtle beauty in silence. It allows your presence to speak louder than your words. In gatherings, a person who listens more and talks less is often seen as wise and graceful. Their silence becomes their strength. People trust them more because silence reflects patience, maturity, and thoughtfulness. All of these are qualities of dignity. Silence also teaches the art of timing. Sometimes speaking too quickly diminishes the weight of our words. But when silence precedes speech, it builds anticipation. And when we finally do speak, our words are received with respect. That pause, That silence adds dignity to the message. It shows that we are not speaking out of impulse, but out of careful thought. Even in personal relationships, silence builds dignity. It prevents us from saying things we will regret later. It saves us from arguments that could wound others. It reminds us that dignity is not about winning every fight, but about preserving love, respect, and harmony. Sometimes silence is not about what we lose by not speaking. It's about what we protect by choosing not to. Dignity is one of the most valuable treasures a woman can carry, and silence is its guardian. Words can sometimes harm dignity if they are careless, but silence never does. It always adds depth, grace, and beauty to the person who carries it well. Influence is not always about how much you say. Sometimes it is about how little you say. True influence is measured not by the volume of our voice, but by the weight of our presence. And silence, when carried with wisdom, has the power to magnify influence in ways that endless talking never can. Have you ever noticed that in a crowded room, the person who speaks the least often holds the most attention? People lean in when they finally say something because silence has built anticipation around their words. Their restraint creates curiosity. Their calmness makes others value what they have to share. This is the magic of silence. It transforms ordinary words into impactful ones because silence gives them space to breathe. Silence also creates respect. When someone constantly argues, constantly explains, or constantly tries to prove themselves, their words lose power. But a person who knows when to be silent shows confidence without needing validation. That quiet assurance becomes influence. It says, I don't need to convince you. My actions, my presence, my silence will speak for me. And people respect that kind of quiet strength. Think of some of the greatest leaders and teachers throughout history. Their influence didn't come from endless speeches or loud declarations. It came from their ability to remain calm in the face of chaos, to listen more than they spoke, and to let their silence carry wisdom. When they finally did speak, their words echoed far beyond the moment because people knew those words were born from silence, reflection, and depth. In personal life too, silence can shape influence. Imagine a family disagreement. If one person shouts and the other shouts louder, influence is lost. But when a woman chooses silence, listens carefully, and later speaks with calmness, her words are far more impactful. Her silence has set her apart from the noise. It has given her an authority that shouting never could. Silence also influences by creating space for others. When you are silent, you give others the chance to express themselves. You make them feel heard, respected, and valued. And when people feel that way around you, your influence over them deepens. They trust you more, they open up more, and they naturally look to you for guidance. Another dimension of influence lies in self-control. People are influenced by those who can master themselves. Silence is one of the clearest signs of that mastery. It shows that you don't need to react to every provocation. You don't need to speak just to fill the air, and you don't need to prove your worth through constant words. That restraint becomes inspiring, and influence grows quietly but powerfully. And here's something important. Silence gives weight to the moments when you do choose to speak. If someone talks all the time, their words may blend into the background. But if someone is usually silent and then suddenly speaks, everyone listens. Silence gives power to speech by making it rare and precious. That rarity is what creates influence. So influence is not always about noise. Sometimes it is about the quiet strength of silence, the calm that commands attention, the pause that creates respect, the restraint that builds authority, and the wisdom that makes words carry weight when they are finally spoken. Life today is filled with constant noise. Phones buzzing, notifications popping, voices talking, opinions flowing. Everywhere there is sound, and in that sound, our minds often get clouded. We try to make decisions in the middle of noise. We try to understand our emotions in the middle of distraction, and we wonder why clarity feels so far away. The truth is, clarity rarely comes in noise. It comes in silence. Silence acts like a mirror. It reflects back to us what is hidden beneath the surface. When we stop talking, stop reacting, and simply sit in stillness, thoughts that were scattered begin to arrange themselves. Emotions that felt overwhelming begin to calm down. In silence, the mind slows enough for the heart to be heard. And once the heart is heard, clarity follows. Have you ever tried solving a problem while you were angry? Words rush, emotions flare, and decisions made in that state often turn into regrets. But when you take a moment of silence before acting, everything changes. Silence allows time to cool the fire inside. It gives you space to see the situation more clearly. What seemed complicated suddenly feels simpler. What felt urgent now appears manageable. That is the power of silence. It clears away the fog so you can see the road ahead. Silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of awareness. When you are silent, you begin to notice things you missed before. You see details in people's behavior. You understand hidden emotions. You sense the true meaning behind words. That awareness sharpens your vision, making your choices more accurate and your responses more thoughtful. Imagine a woman facing an important decision in her life. Everyone around her has an opinion. Family members advising, friends suggesting, society pressuring. If she listens to all of them without pause, her mind will be torn in every direction. But if she chooses silence, sitting quietly, reflecting deeply, she will hear her own inner voice. That voice, often drowned in the noise of others, is where her clarity lies. Silence gives her access to it. Clarity is not about having all the answers instantly. It is about seeing the next step clearly enough to move forward with confidence. Silence provides that next step. It doesn't promise to reveal the entire future, but it does reveal the truth of the present moment. And from that truth, the right decisions are born. Silence also clears relationships. Misunderstandings often grow because we keep talking without listening. But if silence is introduced, pausing, holding back, and truly listening, confusion reduces, understanding increases, and clarity enters the bond. Many broken connections could be healed if silence was chosen over endless arguments. Even spiritually, silence is clarity. When we disconnect from the world's noise and sit in stillness, we reconnect with the deeper part of ourselves. That connection clears doubts, fears, and confusions. It brings us back to what truly matters. So silence is not emptiness. It is clarity waiting to be found. When embraced, it becomes the calm space where problems untangle, where emotions settle, and where the heart finally speaks the truth. Life is full of moments where people may try to hurt us with words, provoke us into fights, or drag us into negativity. In such times, silence acts as a shield, a quiet but powerful protection that keeps us safe from unnecessary pain. While many think silence is just the absence of sound, in truth it can be a strong defense that guards dignity, peace, and inner strength. Have you noticed how arguments often work? One person throws a word, the other responds, then the first raises their tone, and the second raises it even higher. The conflict grows because each word feeds it. But when one person chooses silence, the fight cannot continue. The shield of silence stops the arrows of anger from piercing any deeper. Without a reaction, the attacker has nothing to hold on to. Silence then becomes the invisible armor that protects the heart from being wounded further. Silence is also a shield against gossip and criticism. In this world, people will always have something to say. If you respond to every rumor or defend yourself against every false word, you will waste your energy in endless battles. But when you remain silent, you rise above it. You send a message, your words cannot define me, and I do not need to explain myself. That silence shields your peace, allowing you to live free of the burden of constant justification. There is also a kind of shield silence provides in relationships. Sometimes in moments of anger, we are tempted to say words that cut deep, but those words, once spoken, cannot be taken back. Silence in that moment is like a shield protecting the bond from unnecessary wounds. By staying quiet, you shield not only yourself, but also the other person from regret and pain. Later, when the heat cools, words can be chosen with care and love. Silence even protects our inner world. Our minds are constantly attacked by negativity through media, through arguments, through the endless noise around us. If we allow all of it inside, we lose our calm. But when we practice silence, stepping away from the noise, sitting quietly, protecting our mind, we create a shield around our mental space. That silence keeps us centered and balanced, no matter what storms are raging outside. There's also another way silence acts as a shield. It protects us from ourselves. How often do we regret words spoken in haste? How often do we wish we had stayed quiet? Silence guards us in those moments. It is the shield that stops us from reacting impulsively, from saying things that we will later want to erase. It protects us from our own temporary emotions and saves us from long-term consequences. And sometimes, silence is a shield, not just for individuals, but for entire groups. In families, in workplaces, in communities, one person's silence can prevent a small disagreement from turning into a destructive conflict. That shield of silence preserves unity, harmony, and peace. So while words may defend us for a moment, silence defends us for a lifetime. It is the shield that requires no noise, no effort, no display, just wisdom. And with that wisdom, silence keeps us safe from battles that don't deserve to be fought. There is a kind of silence that goes beyond calmness, beyond dignity, beyond clarity. It touches the soul. This silence is not just an absence of words. It is a doorway to something greater. Silence is deeply spiritual because in silence, we connect with the part of ourselves that is eternal, peaceful, and pure. Our lives are often filled with noise, not just the external noise of traffic, conversations, or constant notifications, but also the inner noise, worries, fears, doubts, endless thoughts spinning in the mind. This noise keeps us away from our true self. But when we step into silence, we begin to hear what lies beneath the noise. We begin to sense the presence of something higher, something divine. That is why silence is not emptiness. It is sacred space. Think of prayer. Many people believe prayer is about words, asking for things, reciting verses. But some of the most powerful prayers are spoken in silence. Sitting quietly, closing your eyes, and simply feeling gratitude without words. This is a spiritual silence. It doesn't ask, it doesn't argue, it simply connects. And in that connection, the heart finds peace. Silence also awakens awareness. When the mind is noisy, it is easy to forget that we are more than our thoughts, more than our roles, more than our struggles. But in silence we remember. We sense the stillness within us, the part untouched by chaos. That stillness is the soul, and silence is the path to it. In many traditions, silence has been the key to spiritual growth. Saints, sages, and seekers often retreated into silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they wanted to hear what cannot be heard in noise. They wanted to hear the whisper of truth, the voice of the inner self, the call of the eternal. And they knew that silence was the only language in which the soul speaks. Silence also makes us humble. In silence, we realize that the universe is vast, life is mysterious, and we are just a small part of it. Words often make us feel big, important, in control. But silence brings us back to humility. It reminds us that not everything can be explained, not everything needs to be said. Some things can only be felt, and silence is the bridge to those feelings. Silence, too, is healing for the spirit. When we feel restless, lost, or broken, silence becomes the place where our soul can rest. It is in silence that we gather our scattered energy, that we breathe deeply, that we let go of burdens. Silence is the sanctuary where the spirit regains its strength. Even in relationships, silence can be spiritual. Sitting with someone you love without speaking, simply sharing presence, can feel sacred. No words, no explanations, no demands. Just souls connecting through silence. That kind of silence is more spiritual than 1,000 conversations. Ultimately, silence brings us closer to truth. Words often divide, interpret, and complicate. But silence unites, simplifies, and reveals. It takes us beyond the surface into the depth of existence. And in that depth, we find the most spiritual of all experiences, peace. Words are powerful, but not all words carry the same weight. Some words fly past without leaving any impact, while others touch hearts, change minds, and even transform lives. The difference lies not just in what is spoken, but in how it is spoken. And most importantly, in how silence surrounds it. Silence is the space that amplifies speech, turning ordinary words into extraordinary impact. Have you noticed how music works? Notes by themselves can sound beautiful, but what makes music truly moving are the pauses between them. Those silent gaps give rhythm, depth, and meaning. Without silence, music would just be noise. The same is true for speech. Silence gives weight to words, allowing them to sink deeper. Without silence, words lose their power. When a woman chooses silence most of the time and speaks only when necessary, her words carry tremendous influence. People lean in to listen because they know she does not waste her speech on trivial things. Her silence has created anticipation, and that anticipation amplifies every word she utters. A single sentence from her can have the power of an entire speech because it is supported by the strength of silence. Silence also amplifies speech by giving time for reflection. When we pause before speaking, our words become clearer, more thoughtful, and more meaningful. Without silence, we risk speaking impulsively, throwing out words that may hurt or lose value. But when we allow silence to guide our speech, what we say is refined, graceful, and lasting. Think of a great storyteller. They don't rush through their words. They pause, they wait. They let silence hang for a moment, and then they deliver the next line. That pause makes the audience curious. It creates suspense. It makes the next words unforgettable. In the same way, in everyday conversations, silence acts as punctuation that makes our speech more powerful. Silence also prevents dilution of words. When someone talks too much, even wise words get lost in the flood. But when someone speaks less, each word stands out like a jewel. Silence amplifies by making words rare, and rarity always increases value. Another dimension is emotional impact. In moments of anger, silence before speech amplifies peace. In moments of love, silence before "I love you" makes those 3 words priceless. In moments of leadership, silence before giving direction makes instructions more respected. Silence is like the drumbeat before the announcement. It magnifies what comes next. Even in arguments, silence amplifies speech. If you respond instantly, your words may sound defensive. But if you pause in silence and then respond with calm, your words will carry authority. The silence before speaking shows thought, self-control, and confidence, and that makes the speech even stronger. Silence also amplifies inner speech. The conversations we have with ourselves in silence, our reflections, prayers, affirmations, become louder within the heart than any outer noise. That inner speech, born in silence, often gives us the courage to speak truthfully in the outer world. So silence is not the absence of words, it is the amplifier that gives words their true power. When combined wisely, silence and speech create balance. One gives strength to the other. And in that balance, words stop being just sound, they become impact.